had the privilege of seeing this work while it was, or their works, while it was sort of on the way to being done, because as part of Chikasani Incubator, we each had a creative development session. So it's very exciting for me to see the journey that these works have been on, and I loved having this behind the scenes look as well. I'm going to take us back a little bit further. Actually, I think we have mics. Maybe each of them can have one. I'm going to go back to the open call itself, because as Kevin explained, this was done through an open call process, and you each applied to produce a work based on this idea of a legacy and a tribute. I'm curious as to what drew you to applying and why you wanted to get involved in a project like this. Maybe we can start with Melissa. You have to press the button.
Thank you. So I saw the open call last year, very exciting. I think it's impossible to be a writer in Malaysia without knowing the works of K.S. Maniam, especially a Malaysian Indian writer. Whatever your relationship is with the works that he has created, you cannot deny the impact that he has had. K.S. Maniam had pioneer privilege. He had the ability to write these characters, and they were novel at the time. And for us, then looking back, it was like, for me looking back, it was like, oh, okay, this has been done. This is great, because it sets a foundation for me and other writers to play and do other things with it. So I was particularly drawn to the way he wrote women. And the fact that, and also, I have to say, his plays are fantastic, but you should read his prose. He writes a preface and that explains why he wrote the play that he wrote, and it's quite amazing to see what he had intended. So I was very drawn to his words in that sense, and I thought, you know what, maybe he's inviting me to come and play with him. So that's how I saw it.
What about Black?
So I think I have quite a similar experience as well. I saw the post of Instagram, if I'm not mistaken, and I immediately responded. I mean, I thought about it for a couple of weeks about what I wanted to do, because I know that my work kind of resonated with Nirmala's work, but I want to do it justice. Not just for the sake of doing it, but rather than, okay, how could it be melded into my work and kind of like pay tribute at the same time, but at the same time being still visual arts, providing information which is relevant, at the same time artistic, right? So for me, as I mentioned in my slideshow, Nirmala's work has been kind of like a guiding star in a way. I was first a self-taught artist, so everything I do is usually very focused on what I feel and trying to expand it outwards. But as I continued down the path of being an artist, I realized that that's not really enough, because there's so many things happening all around us and we have to react back towards it. So after a period of like, okay, I would call it incubation period, when we are feeling more confident as an artist, what do I have to say about the world outside? So instead of looking inwards, I started looking outwards. So that's when I actually did my master's program, and actually I did my work on Marx in the back, which is marketing. Right, I actually write a little bit about his piece as well. But Nirmala's work has always been there, and I wanted to say something about it, but not really sure how. So I went down the whole research-based artist work, and I realized there's so many things to talk about. And Nirmala has already pioneered so many things, but right after her phase, like I look around the contemporary scene, there's so many artists doing so many things. And I feel like I want to join these artists, providing my own intake on the world which I live in, which is Kuala Lumpur at the moment, but not just being an artist, but also trying to figure out how the visual arts and how to think about the environment we live in beyond the work of an artist. So in other words, like anyone here who is listening, how would you react to your environments? That's the core of my work, really, like trying to encourage more and more people to think about, okay, these are the environments we live in. We're always seeing a lot of issues, but at the same time, how it happens, what are the steps which led to it. My work is actually very, very focused on that, and I would say Nirmala has pioneered quite a lot of it before me. Yeah.
Stan, what made you want to apply to this?
Okay, there's some very closely related stuff to it. What this Luis does, especially on the Indian Carnatic side of him. So I felt very connected because tabla was actually my first instrument, and drums was the last instrument that I picked up. So when there was this thing that came up, and so I was like, wow, okay. So the very first time when I saw him, when I was 18, so all those memories just came back, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so that's where everything started.
So that's actually a good bridge into my next question, because this is meant to be tribute, but it's also meant to be an original work, right? How do you keep that balance between honoring someone else's legacy, having that connection, but at the same time also presenting something that is authentically yours, that's in your own style, in your own voice? Maybe you can start.
Right. I think this is a central question to my work as well. For me, it was very, very simple because, as you can see, I actually started from Nirmala's work, and Nirmala's work is very methodical. She actually created all the framework for me. All I had to do is actually figure it out what she actually did, what are the steps which she actually, the thought process which she put into the work, and the central question of, okay, imagine Nirmala's work is repeated within 2025. Do we see the issue still happening? Answer, yes. Is it getting better? No, it's getting worse. How does it affect us as Kuala Lumpurites in 2025? Within my work, if you look at the video work, actually it charts the progression of Kuala Lumpur, how it was founded, very, very new city, but you can see within like 100 something years old, it has exploded into greater Kuala Lumpur, so much area which has been became frontiers, became newer frontiers. So if, for example, you look at Petani Jaya, started as a forest. If you look at old maps of Petani Jaya, it was a very beautiful place, small villages around the rivers, but within 100 years it was turned into a rubber plantation. Fun fact, there's also a failed coffee project which happened in Petani Jaya, right? And then it was changed into a rubber plantation, and then subsequently through intervention from our former administrators, the British, they turned it into a township, and then how we achieve independence and so forth, So there's so many histories which is already enveloped in me, and me as a research-based artist, all I have to do is just take it out.
Yeah.
So I guess your process almost actually thrives on the fact that you're channeling an existing work, right? Stan, what about you? Especially with music, how is this process of tribute versus original?
So what I try to do is I try to bring to not actually to copy, but you see, still I try to put a tabla beside that beautiful drum kit. I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm an Indian. So while playing modern drums, I always try to include the traditional, the Indian side of me, and that's how I redo.
Melissa?
A lot of stress and a lot of drafts. I will say that this is probably one of the most challenging things I've done in a while, because Mani was a writer who knows exactly what he wants to say. And the way the book is put together, the way the collection of plays are put together, it seems almost like a spirit from the grave or moving your hand and telling you, like, better do like this, don't do like that. And so and because it's text, I think the struggle, and I had this conversation with you, how much of the text do I honor, and if I'm honoring the text, do I have to cite it, quote it, because there's so much of the language that was written into the plays that would be considered quite archaic in this era in 2025, especially in terms of how women talk about each other, and also about how men talk about women. So, and I think the most valuable part of our conversation during the incubator was that you said to me, let it be a standalone piece. And I was like, okay, Ken, I'll try. I'll do my best. And even then, I was still writing till this morning. And I'm so fortunate that the actresses were very yeah, let's go, let's keep doing this. The thing is, when I first read The Sandpit, it was very challenging to read. If you read the source text, the play, the way the women talk about themselves and the way they talk about a man who beat them is troubling and difficult to unpack. But in Manu's essay, he says she will not be humiliated and she will restore dignity to herself by herself. And it almost feels like he is trying to tell us or trying to tell me that I want these women to speak for themselves, even in whatever imagined version you're going to do, but let them have the agency to play. And also, Manu enjoyed taboos and going against tradition, which I really enjoy. So it felt like part invitation to play, but also there were clear guidelines.
Okay, so that actually very neatly brings me to the next question. One of the things about being artist, whether it's a writer, musician, is that, especially when you're responding to someone's work, especially when it's someone whose work came from a different time, you may find that there are things that don't quite work for you, things that you want to challenge, things that are controversial, things that you want to change. But at the same time, when you're doing something that's a tribute, how do you balance that tension? Was that a little bit intimidating to think about changing perhaps or questioning such an iconic person's work? I'm very curious about that. I think especially because you mentioned, Melissa, maybe so you can start, about the women, for example, or their voices. How did you balance that?
Okay. So a little bit of context is required. So Sumati and Santa are sister wives, yes. Sumati is written to be a modern woman. She wears a dress, a skirt. Santa always wears a sari. Santa is the first wife, and then typically when you see sister wives on stage, you'll imagine, they must be jealous of each other. And there's that. But there's so much more. I think in the monologues, what I struggled with the most was that the women they spent so much of their time talking about this man instead of themselves and what they dreamed about, what they wanted, and their selves. But, and also there was this strange thread. The collection is called Sensuous Horizons. Clearly this man was trying to write about sex. And I think that is something, like a topic for me that I struggle to kind of do without being lewd. Because you see, if you put sex on stage, even if it's one small scene, that's it, it's a sex play. So I don't want that. Right?
Now it's a mango play.
Now it's a mango play. I remember asking Tarini on the phone, I was like, are you comfortable talking about sex on stage? Because if you're not, let me know. Because you need to be sensitive about these things. But I really do want to explore writing pleasure on stage. I want women to talk about pleasure and what they want and asking for them what they want. This is the fifth of many drafts, And in the early drafts, they actually talk about their mother and the abuse that they suffered from other women. And this draft, it more focuses on their dreams of wanting a sari blouse tailor shop and things like that. So I guess, I hope Manu isn't pissed with me. I don't think he is, but it was a struggle. It was a struggle, yeah. What?
Right, I guess once more, it goes back to Nirmala's work. So the frameworks are already there. So for me, I think the question of honoring her work would be to stay true to what she was trying to discuss. So that was the focus of my work.
Like the issues and the
The social issues, the space. So to do it justice, I had to put boots on the ground, I had to return to these spaces and revisit all of it and go through it properly and just write down my thoughts and observe. I actually studied in Bangsa, somewhere nearby there. So I've been very, very familiar to Bangsa for 10 years and I know the prices of everything in Bangsa, which has been exploding all the time. And to my surprise, Pusat Bandar Damansara, there's an MRT and a new pavilion right now. I remember when that's where I used to go to do my passports. So it was a concrete jungle and it was so permanent and I never even think that one day it would just be completely disappeared like a mirage. Today we return there, there's no trace of what was formerly there. And it's again refronterized, created into another new space to create and extract more value from the space. And then you look around, as I saw the whole area being developed, everywhere you see migrant workers working. Even recently, it's already open, technically half of it. I still see there's a bunch of migrant workers which was working on ledges. I don't see any secured harnesses. No one talks about it, and the living conditions that they live in is horrendous. They just have to live in the very sites that they're making. So we see a lot of colonial processes which was there for 100 years ago. If you just look back at our history, you see these spaces, how it was controlled, how people were separated, how they were antagonized. It's happening today. But we just rebranded it, in a different way. Oh, they're migrants, they're not one of us. So, as an artist which is interested in these subjects, which is out in the open, I believe that all I have to do is just speak truth, that's about it, yeah.
And sort of, I suppose, bring Nirmala's work into the present.
Definitely. Her work will always be present.
Stan, when you were, so actually same question, but particularly with music, was there a sense of, some of the stuff feels a little outdated, I need to update something, or am I changing the style? Were there things that you were thinking about that felt a bit intimidating?
Well, the rhythm always has been the same. It's just how you move it around. So it's been created ages ago. It's nothing new. It's just different sound, different frequency, different velocity, different approach, but it's still the same rhythm. It's still the same thing. But I really studied this guy. I was going through history about this man. This man is, So I'm really amazed with his work. I try my best to do something, and yes.
I really thought that I've watched Lewis perform, not many times, a couple of times, and it really felt like there was a real vibe that felt like you were channeling him but also making it your own, and I really think that that's what this was about. I wanted to actually touch on something you mentioned earlier about being proud about being Indian, because I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but the 3 people that we're honoring today are all Malaysian Indians, proud Malaysian Indians. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that before we open up to the floor for more questions. We have a lot of artistic personalities who actually come from the Malaysian Indian community, but the Malaysian Indian community overall, both within the community and outside, tends not to be very well represented in the national conversation. Our artists tend and that's actually why this kind of an event is so important, because the notion of legacy building for a community that's already underrepresented is complicated. We often can't rely on official channels to do it for us either. So I'm very curious about, for you guys, when you were working on this idea of responding to a legacy, How much did that come into your thoughts of wanting to represent a community or to want to place the concerns of a community in the center of your work? So Stan, maybe you can start.
Okay, well, I currently I'm working in the industry. I'm a musician, and so Indian musician, but I'm playing in a very different what do you call scene, very different scene. So there's this English scene, and then also this Tamil scene. So I grew up playing the Tamil scene, so a lot of Tamil songs, I mean classic Tamil songs, the A.R. Rahman stuff, we are talking about Ile Raja and Viswanathan, and then music became, it was modernized, it's A.R. Rahman and all the newer guys, and then I'm also towards the English side because the English scene is paying more than the Tamil scene, right? So, alright, yeah. So,
By popular request from the audience.
a very quick story about that. So I came from a musical family. It was the family business. It was our cari makan. So that's why I started playing the instrument when I was 4, and literally playing on stage with a set list when I was 7. I can name my playlist to you. I still remember, everything is so fresh. And it was a family business, so the approach was very different. It was for money. So we played for money. It was for us to make the money so that we can go to school and go to tuition, and so that I won't end up being a musician. That's what my father did. Right. Don't ever play that. So.
We're all glad that you ended up here.
I have no choice. I mean, I only can do this, and I love what I'm doing. So that's why I'm here. And now I don't even remember what question you asked.
I feel like you answered it in spirit. Thank you, Stan. Blank, what about you?
For me, I guess representing Indian people or Chinese people in general, because I'm from a mixed parentage. For me, I kind of step back away from it. Even my name, the reason why I call myself Blank as opposed to calling myself by Adam, is only because I'm making a stand really in how in Malaysia generally everything is always related back towards race. I will have a lot of things to say about that, but me personally as an artist, I would like my work to speak for itself, whether it talks about whatever issues. I hope, as all Malaysians, I think we should be involved in every other issues that affects all of us. So therefore, I kind of remove myself from my work. If you see my Instagram page, I don't even put my face, only because in Malaysia people make a lot of assumptions on everything, from your name, from your age, from race, everything. So my takeaway as an artist is I want the issues which I'm talking about to be more important. I don't believe in the idea of a star artist or whatsoever. I reject it. So for me, the work must come first. So Nirmala's way of doing things, I believe, is truly very special, and I believe it should be applied everywhere as well. All right.
I love that. The work comes first. The work always comes first. So I think for me, my body of work in the last decade or so, like more than 10 years ago when I was doing my master's, I wrote a paper on understanding the Malaysian Indian identity through and how they're represented and how stereotypes are formed in Petronas Deepavali advertisements. And so I basically wanted to study, because that's the only time Indians get represented on TV at that point of time. And so my study was focused on that. And then since then, like the poetry that I write, the spoken word, and all the performances have always been built around challenging and interrogating all the Indian goddesses in Amache Jakarta. And also like messing around with stories of like Malaysian Indian people, specifically Malaysian Indian women. I've learned one thing, one story, not enough. You cannot tell the story of all Indians, and you certainly cannot do it, especially in Malaysia. Generationally, it's difficult, so it's an evolving work, it's an evolving discipline, and it's continuous. I would like to tell you that in the 6 years I've been in Singapore, I've had the opportunity to learn how to slowly develop becoming a playwright, which I didn't get the opportunity to hear as much, mostly because of police. Anyway, in Singapore, Indian identity is different, it's very fragmented because the migration and the community there is so young. Here we are third, fourth generation, there we are first generation, like Grace herself is like second generation. So the baggage
First.
right? First, your mom, yes, sorry, first. Okay. So the politics are different. How you tell a story is different. I've never been more Malaysian Indian in my life until I moved to Singapore. And so I think coming back here and exploring the work with KS Maniam, I'm learning that there's so much opportunity for us to do more, to play more, to write more and bring Indian actresses who are so hard to find for some reason and bring them here next year. And so I think it's an exciting time. And also, it doesn't have to be an Indian play for there to be Indian characters.
Yes. A little bit of time. I'd like to open up to the floor for questions, any anecdotes you'd like to share, thoughts. Otherwise, I'm actually just going to ask Anne to share her experiences working with Maniam a little bit, while the rest of you think of questions. Yeah, okay.
Okay, Mary's memories are better than mine. So, Maniam was a brooding presence at rehearsals. I never spoke to him because he was too scary. He sat, watched, and dressed exactly as Naren said. He could be the Tong Sampang but the strange thing was when I did Sandpit again, the last time I did Sandpit was 2012 with Chi Sek Tin as director. Maniam came to watch the show in Penang, and my God, he talked. It was like, maybe it's because he retired from a toxic university or with his literature department, I don't know. He was chatty, he was warm, he was welcoming, he was appreciative that I suppose his play was done again. Now personally, the Sandpit was 1988. It was a monologue then, just one woman, Santa. It was the most difficult thing I had ever done. Because it was my first monologue. It was long, and Christian was relentless. And I had many barriers to break down within myself. I'm a Christian, Malayali woman, convent school. So Santa was very, very, very far from me. I had to allow her to live in my body, allow her the freedom to be and sound that she has written by Maniam. So I had to let go of I had to go into my memories of the women who brought me up. Kali was represented, I did the court in 1986 and 1994. I did both parts. Kali was the woman who was the daughter of the maid who looked after me. Her name was Parvati. She was a stunning looking, hitam manis woman with a coiffured hair. She was a capped woman. Chinna veedu. I had to drag things out of my past to allow these Indian women to reside in my body. And of course, I studied the US, went to USM and feminist ideas. These women did not reconcile with, I was wrestling with being an Indian woman in my own right at that time, and I was wrestling with these women too. And so it was a struggle. So for years, because Sarkar resides in me, when I used to think of a play, like lines I'm coming up, I would always remember, I've always made my own sari border. Threading, I forget the lines now because other plays reside in me, because now Shakespeare resides in me, because I've done like that for 70 times. So, yeah, and I think the most important thing that Mariam's plays taught me was not to impose my way of speaking on the text, but to allow the text, the rhythms and the cadences of the language to come out. So I could not impose my British convent school language on it. I had to allow Mariam's text to rise. And that's the kind of learning that you apply to any text after that. So this is one of the fundamental things that Mariam gifted me for this place. Thank you.
Does anyone have a burning question that they would like to ask our artists today? Otherwise, yes.
It's not burning, but it's a question.
Sorry.
Hi, this is a question for Blank. Blank, I was just wondering, in the process of researching, was it solitary research, or did you discuss with NGOs perhaps that work in areas like M&S who have been working in the past several years in a project called RUGS in the Bukit Kotawan area, North South Initiative, which does a lot of work with migrants? I was just wondering, I don't think that's me, but I'll hand it back to Sharma.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. For this project, actually I got a small limited time to actually complete it. So I actually focus more on, I would say, depth as opposed to width, because I didn't have enough time. But saying so, I wish I did more, reach out to all of them, because they would provide a lot of input which would be very, very useful. Actually, the paper which I actually write on the piece would actually be published soon, but it's more from my own perspective. But saying so, I believe the work, because it's talking about very specific extractive capitalist systems which applies to migrant workers, or applies to care workers, and how a lot of resources are being cheapened. Definitely, I'm very, very open to working with any NGO, especially which are fighting for causes, public causes. Yeah, as I mentioned at the end of my work, actually, and also the piece outside, I actually came up with like an anti-extremist kind of like statement piece. One of the points which I was trying to make is to make art more open resource, open access, because we always live within walls, paywalls. I encountered this when I actually do my research. So whenever I want to find an article, it always comes with like, oh, one article costs about $90. So imagine in a research piece you have like, over 100 citations. We can't be paying for every single one of it. So what I could do as someone within the scene, both as a researcher, both as an artist, is to make more things open source. And the pieces which you see today is open source. You can take it, you can use it. So whoever wants to do remix like my work, I work with a few musicians. Yeah, so they did the remix of one of my works. So yeah, if you are working within all these things, you can always reach out to me, and I would love to work with you as well. Thank you.
So just to close off very quickly, I'd like to ask each of you, what is one big thing that you're taking away from this experience of doing this work? Stan?
Actually, this is my first time sitting in front of this bunch of people. I'm very nervous actually. So, always I play my music. That's what the best I can do. But at least I'm learning something. I'm learning how to sit in front of people.
To talk about your music.
Yeah, to talk about, and I think that's it for me. Very honest.
Like?
If I may interject, can I ask that question?
Sure.
Is that you don't give yourself enough credit?
That's a great hype man.
Yeah, hi. As you all can see, I'm not Indian. Obviously. But Stan, I don't know what's wrong with you today, because when we were preparing for this, you had a lot of things to say, and now you just did. So I'm quite disappointed. But as you may or may not know, the most complex rhythmic thing in the whole world is Indian Carnatic music with Konakol and all. The most complex. The Indians can play Latin music, but the Latinos can't play Carnatic music. You guys are the best. I hope I'm not being very offensive. But I admire Stan. Stan is one of the most unique drummers. He doesn't talk enough about himself. Hello, what are you doing, man? I'm sitting here.
Question, why are you not talking more?
No, my question is basically I'm trying to shed some light on Stan because he didn't do a good job. So Stan has played for the Josie Thomas for a very long time. Stan is a very decorated drummer in the Malaysian music scene, but you didn't tell people that's all people will know, right? Stan was also one of the very few Indian drummers that is working in the Tamil and the English scene. And because tabla was his first instrument, the way he plays drums is not like any drummer you've seen. And that is what exactly channels Lewis's energy. Because they're both percussionists. So I think the question I have for you is I want you to explain to all the nice ladies and gentlemen here, may be Indian, may not be Indian, but some of them want to know, why is Indian rhythm so hard? Because this Eurasian fella bro just told them that Indian rhythm is the toughest in the world. So maybe shed some light on that, please, sir.
He wrote the script and you didn't stick to it.
You're putting me on the spot, bro. I just told
No, correct.
What's the question again?
Why is Indian percussion so complex?
It's so hard for me to explain because I started at a very young age. See, it was easy for me. So, yeah, that's my answer actually.
Next time, Nelson will sit on that. We will take notes.
Yeah, by the way, I just met this guy last week, okay?
Stan, where are you performing next? How do we find more of your work?
Wow! I post my updates on my Instagram.
Okay.
So I'll definitely share.
At
my
Stand
Instagram handle.
Connection.
Yeah, at Stand Connections.
With a K and an X.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all going to follow you now.
Thank you.
And thank you, Nelson. Now we dance. And Melissa, you want to close off with your...
What was the question again?
I was asking, what is
one
your...
big takeaway?
Yeah.
Okay. What a blessing. I will say that the biggest takeaway is that this. Okay. This is the draftiest of drafts. And putting out a draft on stage is terrifying because it's supposed to be a larger piece, there's so many context clues, and then there's balancing Maniam's voice literally telling you what he wanted and what he envisions. So there's that. But I think the biggest takeaway I can say is listening. I'm learning to listen to my actresses who tell me, hey, this one, I think Tamil better. This line, how to get it done and what sounds natural. Also listening to Maniam and also listening to anyone else who wants to, who felt connected to it or is engaging with the work. But most of all, I think it's about listening to myself and knowing that sometimes it's okay for the draft to go out into the world so that people can see it and give you proper feedback and make it better. And I want to do more of that. I'm so grateful that Maniam told me that it's okay to grieve the end of writing a play. And the grief and the sadness that comes of never being able to do full justice to your characters. I'm so comforted by this, and that's what I'm taking.
Thank you, Melissa Rani T. Silva. Thank you, Black Malaysia. Thank you, Stan Calvin. A big round of applause. And now I'm handing the mic back to Kevin.
Thank you, everyone.